Hello and welcome to Hybrid Horizons. Now, you've probably noticed there are more hybrid cars on the roads than ever before, so obviously they're very popular with buyers. But you might be one of those people that's still sat on the fence thinking, what are hybrid cars? How do they work? And should I be considering one? If those questions are all swirling around in your head, then stay tuned. The car I'm driving today is the Toyota Prius, the very first hybrid car developed for a global market way back in 1997. At the time, it was a total game changer. It was quiet, it was fuel efficient, and it was a great option for eco-conscious families or taxi drivers. In fact, this wasn't just a car, it was the start of a revolution. Other options back then were pretty limited. Toyota obviously led the way and other manufacturers scrambled to play catch up. And now, of course, you get hybrid technology in everything from high-performance sports cars right through to big off-road use. But before we chat present day, let's take a rewind and look at where hybrid technology all began. Because, of course, this idea wasn't just born overnight. In fact, the idea of hybrid technology has been around for over a century. The first mass-produced hybrid car was this one, the Toyota Prius, as I previously mentioned, and hot on its heels was the 1999 Honda Insight, which had hybrid technology developed for a US market. Nowadays, hybrid cars are some of the most advanced, efficient, and exciting cars on the road. And of course, they're more accessible than ever. Over the next few weeks, we are going to be exploring everything there is to know about hybrid cars. We are going to be looking at the evolution of hybrid cars, the technology behind the drive, which hybrid car might be right for you, and we are going to be talking to industry experts. So whether you need a bit of a hybrid car 101 session or perhaps a refresher, then we are going to be covering it all here on Hybrid Horizons. Hello and welcome to Hybrid Horizons. I'm Jess and James, and this series we are talking hybrid cars, hybrid technology and hybrid driving. So whether you're a long-time hybrid user, a curious first-time buyer, or perhaps you don't know much about this space at all, then stay tuned because over the next 4 episodes you're certainly going to learn something. Now, the fact that hybrid cars utilize a combination of combustion and electric engines means that we, as the driver, get the best of every world. But every manufacturer has their own way of doing things. So when it comes to hybrid cars, it's certainly not a case of one size fits all. So James, we've got a great lineup of cars here, but I can see they all look very different. And you've already alluded to the fact that not all hybrids are created equal.
That's right.
So can we talk through all of these cars in a bit more detail, starting with this Nissan?
Well, actually, you've picked the best one to start with because this is essentially the most different of all of the hybrids here. Nissan's e-Power system, instead of basically supplementing the petrol engine with an electric battery and an electric motor, you are driving an electric car. With the X-Trail, you can get this system in a Qashqai as well. But the petrol engine acts as a generator to keep that battery charged. So you get the feel and the smoothness of driving an electric car, but you get the battery and range of a hybrid. The only downside here is that you can sometimes feel that petrol engine kick in and it just takes a little bit of getting used to is the key. But these are great. These are really good around town, really become very popular for Nissan. And again, perfect around town, good for touring as well.
So would you say perhaps this is the kind of car, if you're thinking of moving to purely EV, this would be a good starting point?
Absolutely. It's a great way to understand how it feels. And I think driving a petrol car versus driving an electric car, they do feel remarkably different. And I think the way that Nissan have done the e-Power system, it's a really clever way of doing things.
Okay, cool. And so they're moving over to the MG ZS Hybrid Plus. What are your thoughts?
So this is a very popular segment. Small SUVs, we're seeing a lot of people, they like the compact space to run around town. These are doing the errands, but you've got the flexibility of an SUV to go for a longer trip. And it's where the hybrid works. And what we've seen MG do with the ZS and also with the MG3 that we'll talk about in a minute they're using slightly bigger batteries, slightly more powerful motors, so that the car is using more electric power, particularly at lower speeds. So you'll find driving this, moving away from the traffic lights, even in stop-start traffic, you will be more electric than you are petrol, and then the petrol engine will kick in. Only downside here is you are paying a bit more for hybrids, and in fact, across the board, you pay more for the hybrid. We know this part of the market is very, very price sensitive, so you do need to weigh up whether the extra investment in the car is worth it for the saving on that week-to-week fuel shop.
So James, this Mitsubishi Outlander is a plug-in hybrid.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so look, this is Australia's best-selling plug-in hybrid too, Jess, and I think the key here is in the name. You need to plug it in to get the most out of it. And what you have with a plug-in hybrid is a bigger battery than you do in a series hybrid. And what it means is you can drive this car roughly 80 kilometres on full electric power, then the petrol engine will kick in and you've got that extended range. And what that means, if you're just doing the school run or the commute, you could go weeks without using a drop of petrol in this car, providing you plug it in. The benefit too of a car like the Outlander is you can use that big battery to power other things. So it means if you're taking the family somewhere remote, you're going camping, you want to run a cooker or something, an air mattress pump, you can use the car's battery to power electrical devices, which is even more flexible than a series hybrid. The downside here is it's bigger, it's heavier. If you do run out of charge on a longer trip, you've got generally what is a smaller petrol engine than you normally would, carting around a heavier car. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, but for a lot of people, this makes brilliant sense in terms of a best of both worlds solution.
Right, okay, so now tell me about the Hyundai Tucson then.
Okay, well this is, look, the new Tucson, really cool, and I love this satin paint that you've got for us. This is kind of, look, I don't want to say it's vanilla, but this is a traditional series hybrid in that you don't need to do anything. It's just a really clever, really simple system. You don't need to plug it in. You don't need to think. You don't need to change your habits. You don't need to drive in a certain way. It's just efficient. And what you'll find with a car like this, you will halve your fuel bill. It's that clever, it's that good. What you might find is in a normal petrol car, you'd be using, say, 10 litres per 100. In this, you're down to 5 litres per 100. So it really is just effortless efficiency.
That's so good for young families.
Oh, absolutely. The key is here, you're just going to go to the petrol station, less.
Great. Looking for the perfect car?
Explore Drive Newsed, new and quality used cars for sale, available now to drive away today. Only at drive.com.au.
So James, this is the second MG in our lineup, but obviously it looks very different. Can you talk me through it?
It's very blue, and I kind of like this colour. But yeah, look, the MG3, this is the new one. Same system as we saw in the ZS hybrid. So you've got a slightly bigger battery than you tend to see in series hybrids, even bigger than in the Tucson. You've got a more powerful electric motor. It tends to err on that electric power. Really great for this kind of car because they can be very, very efficient around town. But the key here is light hatchbacks. A lot of people buy these as their first car or a second car for the family, so cost is a big consideration. And I guess here, you pay more for the hybrid is the key. And what we're going to say with all these cars that we're looking at, yeah, there's a lot of benefits, but you do need to weigh it up, and they're not for everybody. So if value is where you're looking at, great little car in the MG3 hybrid, but it's about $4,000 more than a petrol-only version. And that's a lot of petrol. So it's one of those things you just need to consider. They're not for all people, but it's great to see more and more hybrids at this end of the market because these are perfect city cars. So it's a perfect way to have better fuel efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. So a first-time buyer, basically, you know, they might be someone where money isn't ample. They just need to do some maths.
Weigh it up. You will save money on fuel, but you will spend more money on the car. And that's the thing. You weigh up where that's going to work. And really, the resale on a hybrid tends to be higher than on a petrol car at the moment. So you might actually be beneficial in the long run to invest in the hybrid, even if you're not sure you're going to get that immediate benefit.
Okay, cool. And then finally, from GWM, we've got the new Haval H6 GT plug-in. I think I got that name right.
Yeah, it's a long name.
That's quite a new brand, aren't they?
Yeah, GWM hasn't been here for that long, and what we've seen, this is another example of newer brands really investing into this technology, because GWM, they had the first hybrid ute in the Canon Alpha. We saw they've got the hybrid system in the Tank 300 and the Tank 500 SUVs. So where this differs to the Outlander, for example, example, you've got a bigger battery. This has got a claimed electric-only range of 180 kilometres. That's massive. But it's not just using the hybrid system for efficiency, it's using it for power, because the combined output of the petrol engine and the electric system is 321 kilowatts. That is more than a V8 Commodore had. It's pretty bonkers to see this kind of power in a car like this, but this is where electrification is taking us. This is where the modern use of a hybrid system is taking us, into real performance and real range out of a mid-size SUV.
Okay, thank you, James. So I guess we've got all cars are hybrid here, but very different cars to choose from.
That's it. No two hybrids are alike. Well, the two MGs are, but, you know, no two hybrids are alike. And there's different ways to do it. And I think for buyers, it really is a way of trying to understand what works best for you is the key. Because there's not one solution. There's not one size fits all. There are a lot of really cool and really exciting options.
Okay, well, hopefully we can educate them a bit more today.
Indeed.
Hybrid cars. We hear the term a lot, especially these days, but what does it actually mean? Are all hybrid cars the same, and how do they work? In this episode, we are breaking down different hybrid systems, from mild hybrids to plug-in hybrids, and we're looking at different manufacturers such as Hyundai and MG to see how they are advancing hybrid technology. A hybrid vehicle utilises two different power sources, a traditional internal combustion engine and an electric motor, to maximise fuel efficiency and reduce emissions. But not all hybrid vehicles work the same way. Let's break them down further. First up, mild hybrids. These vehicles can't run on electric power alone, but they do have a small battery to help support the petrol engine. This helps with acceleration, it also reduces strain on the engine, and it helps improve fuel economy. And here's the clever part, the battery doesn't need to be plugged in. Instead, the vehicle recharges itself using regenerative braking and the engine itself, meaning it recovers energy every time your vehicle slows down. Brands like Mercedes, Fiat Chrysler and General Motors all use mild hybrid technology to make their petrol engines more efficient. Next up, we have got full hybrids. Unlike mild hybrids, these cars are able to drive purely on electric power, but usually at lower speeds. And there are two main types. You've got parallel hybrids, which can drive on electric or petrol power, or use both at the same time, and series hybrids, where the petrol engine never directly drives the wheels, but instead charges the battery and powers the electric motor. Full hybrids are self-charging, so they don't need to be plugged in. Toyota's Hybrid Synergy Drive and Honda's iMMD system are great examples of how this technology has evolved. Looking for the perfect car?
Explore Drive Newsed, new and quality used cars for sale, available now to drive away today. Only at drive.com.au.
As you can see then, there are lots of different ways you can use hybrid technology. But as a driver, regardless of what hybrid technology you're using, your biggest question is always going to be, how is a hybrid vehicle going to affect me as a driver? And am I going to have to change any of my driving habits? Well, the short answer to that is no. You shouldn't have to change any of your driving habits, but what you might find are that you get some long-term benefits that positively affect your long-term driving experience. For example, because your battery is working in conjunction with your petrol engine, power delivery is smoother, and as a result, you'll find that at takeoff or when you're going at lower speeds, your vehicle should be quieter. Which, when you think about it, if you're someone that has to leave early in the morning, or perhaps if you work night shifts, that's going to be a real benefit, because it'll mean you'll be able to use your car without waking up the family or waking up the neighbours. And then when it comes to the maintenance side of things, you should find that a hybrid vehicle needs less frequent maintenance, and some parts should last longer, such as systems as regenerative braking, which take the load off the brakes. And then finally, and probably the most obvious one, we've got fuel efficiency. With everything we've spoken about working together, your tank should stretch further. And that means less trips to the petrol station and more opportunity for you to save money long term. Hybrids are known for their fuel efficiency, but are they limited to just city driving? James, I want to understand how hybrids perform in different environments.
Yep.
Why do they have a reputation for being most efficient in that stop-start traffic?
Well, this is it's a pretty easy one to kind of work through. We've all experienced driving a petrol car, and you use more petrol driving around town than you do on the open road. And it sort of feels a bit weird. You're doing 100 kilometres an hour there, you're doing maybe 40 kilometres an hour there. But basically around town, that engine's never really relaxing. The car, the engine's off, it's on, it starts, it revs high, you're accelerating to a next set of lights and then stopping again, versus on the open road, it's running at a constant cycle. So it is more efficient on the highway than it is around town. So that's where the battery and the electric motors come in to kind of work in concert with the petrol engine. It's where you get the regenerative braking to recharge the battery, and it offsets where that the petrol engine is typically least efficient. And you think driving any of these hybrids, when you move away from a stop, that's normally the harshest part for a petrol engine. You're driving on electric power, so you're getting that benefit of the electric motors really early on.
Okay, so essentially, thanks to the regenerative braking, it does perform best in those stop-start conditions.
Absolutely, because you think on a highway cycle, you're not using any of that, and the car is just using the petrol engine, so the batteries don't really help. Urban driving, perfect for hybrids.
Okay, still can be used on a highway, but
absolutely,
just
nothing
most
stops
efficient.
you. Yeah. You can go
okay.
wherever you want, and that's the beauty of it. You don't ever need to stop.
Great. Okay, thank you for clearing that one up, James.
Absolutely.
Looking for the perfect car?
Explore Drive Newsed, new and quality used cars for sale, available now to drive away today. Only at drive.com.au.
All right, we all know hybrid cars are everywhere at the moment. Whether it's been in a taxi, in a family SUV, or a luxury car, chances are you have been in one recently. But how big are hybrid cars really, and where is the market headed? Luckily for us, we have someone in the know. Lee Mason, General Manager of Marketplace at Drive, is here with us to give us the breakdown on hybrid cars, what's going on at a dealer network level, and where the market is headed. So Lee, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
How has the market trended in Australia over the last 12 months with hybrid vehicles?
Yeah, as you said, Jess, we've seen significant growth in the hybrid market in Australia. Last year in 2024, we saw over 172,000 vehicles of the conventional hybrid sell in Australia, and we saw over 23,000 of the plug-in hybrid version sold as well. And just to give you some context in terms of the growth year on year, the traditional hybrid grew 76%, whilst the plug-in hybrid grew 100% year on year. So there's some significant increases happening in the market.
Yeah, wow. And how does that compare, for example, to EV models or the traditional petrol or diesel model?
Those two numbers in totality combine to be around about 16% of the total sales for the new car sale market in 2024. We still see the petrol variant models as the highest selling in Australia. There was over 500,000 of those petrol vehicles sold last year, and diesel also was still a large seller of vehicles in the Australian market. But I think what's really interesting to see is the changing year-on-year trends. So petrol cars declined 10% year-on-year, whereas the diesel cars declined 3%. And as I said earlier, clearly hybrid is in a big growth phase, and those numbers of 76% and 100% are large growth numbers year on year.
And which manufacturers are sort of taking the lead in terms of hybrid sales? Are Toyota and Honda still leading the pack, or is it different ones now?
Yeah, Toyota's a mainstay in the hybrid space and have been for some time. Last year alone, they sold over 100,000 units of a hybrid variety. So, and the RAV4 from a nameplate, from a top-selling model, was the major seller.
I mean, you've obviously just mentioned the RAV4, but are there other models that kind of stand out within their segments as leaders of hybrid sales?
Yeah, looking at the data, what's really interesting is the new entrants into the market. So we had the BYD C-Line 6 was a top seller when we look at the plug-in hybrid variants of the lineup. So for BYD, if you look back 12 months, they weren't even in the category for the plug-in hybrid. So the market's changing and changing very, very quickly.
And what about within the luxury space as well?
Yeah, luxury, I think Lexus, their NX and those types of cars are selling particularly well. And what's interesting with the NX in particular is the profile that's available in the petrol and the hybrid. And their profile of sales in 2024 showed 70% preferred the hybrid version.
So are manufacturers extending their lineup to include hybrid models based on consumer demand, or do you think there's more of a focus on extending into an EV range?
Look, I think it's a great question. I think brands are really taking notice of the market trends at the moment, particularly the consumer trends. If we go back a couple of years ago, EVs were tipped to outpace sales. We've seen in recent times, probably last year, we saw for the first time the EV market cool a little bit, particularly here locally in Australia. And we've seen a real resurgence in the hybrid market.
And that's just the beginning. Next week, we'll be going under the hood, quite literally, to look at the technology inside hybrid vehicles. We'll be breaking down regenerative braking, looking at hybrid batteries and how they work. So if you've ever wondered what makes hybrid cars so fuel efficient, you won't want to miss it. See you next week on Hybrid Horizons.
So are the batteries that you'll find in a hybrid the same as what you'll find in a fully electric car? Well, yes and no.
And just when MG fans thought it couldn't get much better, MG have just launched the new MG3 Hybrid. Looking for the perfect car?
Welcome to an all-new way to shop for your next car. Visit Drive News and find thousands of brand new demonstrator and high-quality used cars available from Drive's nationwide dealer network and ready to drive away today. So for new and quality used cars, discover Newsed, only at drive.com.au.